Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Tech Tuesday. I have got Danielle Duplin. Did I do that right, Danielle?
Indeed.
With me, we met at CES at the Agetech Collaborative, and we have a great show for you. I'm just a little out of sorts here. You just never know when you're doing live stream what's going to happen with the technology. And Danielle's is perfect. Mine is perfect. And we've got some platform problems that we will have to survive and figure out as we go along. And, you know, some of this stuff is just out of your control. But anyway, before we get started, this. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. Danielle, welcome. CES has become sort of one of my new must-go-to conferences. It started out as something an occasional, and the first time I went, I was surprised to actually run into one or two people I met. This year when I went, I must have run into, I don't know, 30 or 40 people I met. It was really crazy. I was surprised. And we've gotten so many great guests. Every week I get somebody on from CES. I say, well, this is the last one. And there's always one more, but I think this really is the last one. So you were on a panel about a brand new book that came out of MIT. And I know you did several things during that. And there it is, the longevity of it. And it was a great presentation. And I'd actually like to start with talking a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. Well, thanks so much for having me on the show, Steve. It's great. And thank you for doing this work, getting this information out throughout the year, not just at CES, but that is exactly why we do the work, which is to convene age tech innovators across every sector and across all matter of topics and thought leaders, because aging is living and we're living longer, but we're not necessarily aging better. And so we need a lot more technology and innovation to make that journey be the best that we can be. And so I'm so excited that you came to our panel discussion. So we can talk a lot more about the book, and we can talk a lot more about the technology that we featured at the Agetech Collaborative, and also really the technology innovation that's happening everywhere. I'm doing this work here in Boston. I'm connected with a lot of global innovation hubs as well. But I got into this work, I guess I've been doing this work in some way almost my entire career. I spent 26 years in financial services, first as an engineer, building technology to help people with their financial plans. And one thing we know is that Americans aren't necessarily saving enough for their retirement, or we don't even use that word anymore, do we? But for the later years. And so it was a big motivator to figure out like how to help people not outlive their money. And so spent a lot of time looking at sort of aging through the financial services savings lens. And then in the middle part of my career, I was an executive at the company and helping to launch new lines of business by applying emerging tech, one of which was our benefits outsourcing business. And that's where we got the deeper insight on aging around the healthcare lens, which is, you know, how do you pay for healthcare? And we were managing so many complex plans across so many companies. And, you know, it was clear that one catastrophic illness or chronic illness really could wipe out your savings. And so it became a broader conversation, was how do we help our own healthcare journey as part of our financial journey. And then the last part of my career was an executive producer of our innovation programming and produced TED Talks and anything to do with bringing in emerging tech and thought leaders, getting people really excited about the possibilities of how technology can solve problems. So when I reached my crossover date, I was there longer than I hadn't been there. Over half my life. So I was like, so now it's my turn to design my best years ahead. And so I decided to do this work out on my own as a consultant. And I work with AARP, Agetech Collaborative, and a number of other large companies and startup founders, all working on age tech innovation.
Okay, so the first thing is that we'll have to do this conversation, I guess, off air, although maybe this might be an interesting conversation on air for a later episode, is I want to do a TEDx talk. And I don't know anything about it. So can you help me with that?
Of course I can. I also
Well, then
coach public speakers.
okay, well, we'll talk about
Yeah.
that off air when we're done here. It's sort of one of my dream bucket lists. So let's. Oh, actually, you talked about something, and I want to actually. I think you're probably a little younger than I am, but you're starting to look at this, second half of your life and this aging career. I'm 70, and I'm in complete denial about my age. I still think of myself as I don't know, a 40-year-old, and I know I take more pills and I spend more time going to the doctor. I've got to have cataract surgery sometime in the next coming months. I get, my stamina is not quite as well, but I'm still, I'm still, in my mind, I'm still, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 years younger. Right? I'm Jada, who's producing in the back. I'm probably a little bit older than her, but not much. And so I'm gonna maybe you've actually thought this through. Tell me about what your dream is for your old age.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, well, I guess I'm living the dream, right? Because I'm in my 60s. So I, turn the corner.
Oh, you're not that. Oh, yeah, you're not that far behind me.
Yeah. So, and I think like each chapter is an opportunity to reinvent yourself, like take the best of all your favorite things that you've done and what you've learned and what you have still curious about and kind of repackage that and create your next best job, and I think you and I are in a similar situation where we're kind of creating our own entrepreneurial endeavor. It's less about working for a company, at the moment. So I'm really enjoying taking a look at what the unmet needs are and applying an entrepreneurial lens to that. And so if I can bring kind of my innovation background to it, if I can bring the public speaking piece of it, can I bring the convening and bringing the ecosystem together, I'll do that. Like, I think in a way, like this time of our life, we get to like really sink in to what matters most to us and what really appeals to your superpower and where your spirit wants to take you, so I don't know. I just think this is a really fun time of life. And I get to be best friends with my adult kids who, so you go from raising the kids to being their best friends and like, that's pretty awesome. So yeah, I think it's, shape shifting. You just got to keep shape shifting.
Yeah, and you're right about becoming good friends, best friends with your kids. I'm traveling on Thursday up to Seattle, where two of my kids and grandkids live. And I was talking to my daughter, who also works for me, Rebecca, and she's so excited to see me, right? And there was a time where, my kids would say, Mom, Dad, I don't know. I kind of got my own life. And now, it's like, oh man, we can hardly wait to get together. So you're absolutely right about that. So,
Yeah.
I want to dig into sort of technology, what you see that's really working, what we need to invent. But one of the things that you kind of have touched on the edge of that I find myself really concerned about for people who are growing older in the United States, maybe in the Western world, is how complex everything is.
Yeah.
My 92-year-old stepfather lives with us. He's got significant cognitive decline. He did a short stint in senior living that was pretty awful. He's fortunate, and we are fortunate in many respects because he's got plenty of money in the bank. He will outlive his money. The money will outlive him by forever. And he's not angry. He's just sort of, it's hard. And yet everything is complex. There are all these people and players and applications, and I'm pretty sophisticated, and the healthcare system seems to be designed to serve the healthcare system more than for the patients. And do you have any thoughts on how we solve that?
Oh, I have hundreds of thoughts on that.
Awesome. I want to hear about it.
Hundreds. Yeah. So, all right. So you touched on a lot of things. And I think one for sure is that mindset that you mentioned, right? So, whoever thought that when we were in our mid 60s, 70s, that we'd be caregiving for older parents, right? So already we are all finding ourselves in any stage. The fastest growing cohort of caregiver are millennials and younger adults. And so I think what we're experiencing for the first time in human history is, 5 generations in the workforce. And this notion of not just sandwich generation, but there's many layers to that sandwich, all caring for each other. And so we all come to this work through our own lived experience, comfort with technology, our sort of own way of being in a continuous growth mindset, and do, like lifelong learning, right? Because it's true, in order to keep up with all of the options and opportunities and the technology and the solutions and all of that, you got it. Like there needs to be that opportunity to keep learning and adapting. And that gets hard for folks, especially if you're at it alone and you're not surrounded by a care community of some kind. It could be paid caregivers, family caregivers, neighbors, senior living, as you mentioned, congregate care, but folks who can kind of help you along that journey. And so, although I am a technologist by trade, it's not that we're leading with tech. To me, every solution has to blend high touch with high tech. So almost to the point where the technology itself is invisible, it's ambient tech, or it's so seamless into your life that it's almost hard to use it wrong. Like like we need technology. We just need it because there's just not enough caregiver. There's not enough math of caregiver to older adult, right? So, and we need technology to help, deliver health interventions. We need technology to keep our homes kind of activated and smart home, if you will. So I like to say we want to stay in our homes that we love, but our homes have to love us back. We're all going to start to, maybe need different technology devices for different parts of our body, that get in decline, like maybe it's to help with walking or mobility with your legs or with your hands and gripping, or your eyes. As you mentioned, you're getting surgery. So, we're going to have some kind of tech augmentation we have to be comfortable with. So I think it's a both and, right? It's like each of us kind of have to sort of be open to adapt. And I think that the folks who are providing solutions need to design with older adults and caregivers and professionals so that the technology is much more seamless into the workflow and into the lifestyle for people who need it.
Okay, you said something. I'm actually going to type this in and put it up on the screen because I like it so much.
Okay.
Let's see if I can actually, can I do that? Okay. Did I get it? Wait, here we go. Let's see if I can get it to post. Okay. Our homes have to love us back. I love that. So talk to me about what that looks like.
Sure. So just a practical level, right? If you want to stay in your home, you've got to look at all of the home modifications that, the stairs and the uneven floor surfaces and grab bars and all that kind of stuff that seems somewhat obvious, but maybe something we might resist. But then you get to the next level of the technology, right? How might you build in ambient technology so that things like climate control inside the home, fall detection, a danger or any kind of alert awareness and so forth, ways that the home can communicate out with your family members who might not live near you or your care team or so forth. And now we just featured this at another panel at CES that I moderated, which is a number of folks who are all part of the Matter standard. So as each of these point solutions in your home start to connect together, then you can have a much more integrated suite of solutions. So for example, let's say you have some technology that recognizes your wake sleep habits or your bathroom habits or your eating habits. And let's say there is a fall in the bathroom, God forbid. So there could be one technology that might detect the fall, but then if it's connected to Matter standard, there could be another technology that automatically turns on the lights, automatically unlocks your door, automatically alerts the local authority, automatically alerts your care team, so that instead of having that tragic case where you are, on the floor for many hours, instantly you can have a care team arrive and your home will welcome people in. So, if we think specifically and then we think integrated and then we think broadly, there's so many ways that both the house can be smarter, but also how that house connects to the city and the infrastructure and, all of the other organizations that really create kind of like this patchwork of care.
So what bugs me about this is I love this. So I better start. But what bugs me about this is I actually think the technology is available to do that now,
Hmm.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, and yet it's not really there. It doesn't work. I mean, I look at with my stepfather, right? He fell yesterday. I'm
Oh,
gonna write about it. We were out to eat, going back out to the car. Fortunately, we still don't know. Had a nurse out, and he went butt first, back, and then head. So we didn't have this big colossal thing. But I work. I've not got a camera in his room. I've got a Ring camera in his room, and so I look in on him occasionally to see how he's doing. And he seems to be kind of doing okay. But I want something that's going to be that I can turn on that will be looking at his respiration and
mm,
maybe even measuring his movements and his maybe even pulse. I don't know. That becomes a little bit harder, but he could have a device on that could do that, and I could set
oh,
some standards that would say,
mhm.
hey. If his heart, if his respiration drops below, 10 breaths a minute, wake me up. If his heart rate drops below 50, wake me up. If he hasn't moved in 30 minutes, wake me up. And it still doesn't, it still seems impossible.
Well, it's getting closer to being possible,
Okay.
and yeah, it's for sure. Because clearly we're seeing this broader acceptance of wearable technology. Whether it started as the watches, now the rings and other manner of objects that one can attach to one's body to take all those biometric measurements that you're describing, which not only has benefits from a safety standpoint, but also from a health treatment standpoint. So if your father is taking medications or is being treated for certain conditions, all this data can be integrated into, let's say, a medication dosing plan, or to see how, he's responding to certain things. I mean, we've got even smart water bottles that will detect hydration, that will automatically adjust recommended dose of water based on the medications that he's taking and the heat and the temperature. You may have to drink a little bit more if it's a little warmer. I mean, so like every object, his bed could be tricked out with technology to kind of detect a lot of those sleep patterns and habits. There's definitely ambient technology that can detect heart rate. There's smart toilets that could diagnose diseases in the urine and could detect differences in different household members. So, every piece of your home can get tricked out. What we're finding is that there needs to be kind of a more seamless way to integrate all this data into a story, into something that could be insightful to somebody who is looking at it, whether it's a loving son like yourself, or it's a care team or physician or so forth, right? So we're hearing now that folks can be, healthcare providers are very excited about this level of information, but overwhelmed. How does it fit into the day to day? There's this notion of alert fatigue. If every single object in your house is firing off all of those alerts because you've set certain thresholds, and now there's all these there's like alert fatigue. What do you do? Um, so there's the simplicity of the individual solutions. There's the way it integrates together, and then there's like factoring it into the flow for people's life.
Yeah, and then I think the other part of it is that the other part we haven't really talked about is two parts. There's both the cost and the complexity, right? That
Mm,
we've sort of touched on the complexity, but I mean, I look at this and I'm thinking for somebody who's watching out there, who's young, who's saying, I want to go do H tech and I want to
mhm.
make a fortune, go start a company that does all this stuff that I can pick up my phone and I can say, I am getting old and I want to have all this technology, or give me your menu of technologies. And I want you to come in and spend 3 days making my house technology wise. And then I want you to tell me how to set it up and tell me how to set up the alerts. So I want this to be easier rather than
Yeah.
hard. And I don't want to pay a fortune for it.
Yeah, I mean the costs, that one is a moving target, because, and we do see so many innovators coming to this work, and it's beautiful. They're coming typically from a lived experience, having provided care for a loved one, and then having this deep motivation to make it easier for the next person. And so we love that. We also highly recommend that for whatever solution space you want to be in, go spend time with the people who are experiencing that full stop. Like get in, spend time at senior living. We've got some senior living operators who are doing these entrepreneur in residence programs, like come live at senior living for a month, right? Experience all of it from the point of view of the staff, the resident, the families, and so forth. You mentioned your phone. I mean, it's wonderful to know that there you are. You mentioned your age, 70, and you're comfortable with a phone. Like even just knowing what technology people are comfortable with, that will help, with the solution design. There are some folks that aren't comfortable with phones. And so we've got some great innovators who are delivering all this through the TV. So making the TV, which is the trusted source for a lot of folks. And then there's folks who are not necessarily designing like the actual innovation or intervention, but they're designing the service layer around it. So they will come to your home and, consult with your family and design something for the home, set up all the technology, help with the training, help with the maintenance. Because the other thing that we need our innovators to remember is it's not just getting your product into the hands of somebody who needs it. If there's a technology component, you also have to design for the maintenance and the upkeep. If it needs to be charged, if it needs to be upgraded, if it needs to be, changed out, like all of the training, all of that also needs to be designed. And so that these technology, we don't run into the trap of the novelty trap, right? So it might work for a short time and then it ends up in a closet and people just go back to default behavior. So easy, inexpensive, seamless. Like there's lots of folks who are kind of getting after it, and we do need the ecosystem. That's why we need the ecosystem, because there is no one person or one innovator who can do all of that at scale.
Yeah, that it's the ecosystem is, I think, the biggest problem. The other area that I think is so fascinating and seems to be so far behind is sort of the first, I don't know, really cool technology that came out, 8 or 10 years ago now, was Alexa and voice, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it doesn't feel like voice has gotten that much better. So I was complaining about voice, and this guy Jack Cumming, who writes for us, he lives in senior living communities in his 80s, very technology savvy, and he said, "I'm going to help you with voice." And 2 days later, this big widescreen high def television showed up on my front door that he sent me, that's voice activated. And there's a lot of stuff it'll do, but there's a lot of stuff it won't do that I've still got to use the remote for. And I don't understand why this voice thing has sort of lagged behind. Any thoughts on that?
Well, this is an industry-wide problem. Like even just trying to watch a show on TV and stream, just stream a show. You finally get a chance to sit down, and on the couch, you're ready to just watch your show, and it just takes like too long to find it, right? I mean, that is, there's the user experience layer, which for sure is again something that requires deep professionalism and insight and design, and then there's like what that user experience layer is connecting to behind the scenes. And so as we see like AI agents and companions and so forth get smarter and smarter, I think we will start to see more sophisticated use cases where you can say, like my daughter, when she's ready to, to wind down, she goes, "Alexa, make it cozy," and that's just code word for dimming the lights at 50% and doing, it's very sweet, right? But you can see like where one set of phrases might actually trigger more than one activity behind the scenes that, start to kind of create that ideal scenario that you're looking for. And so I think it's, getting after the user experience layer and what is that connecting to behind the scenes and how sophisticated can all of those, actions be, and when and how do those actions stitch together to create that, more holistic experience that you're looking for. Like, hey, I'm feeling blue today. Like, send me my meds. What that might trigger off so many other, actions. Pharmacies and delivery and dosing. I mean, like, who knows? Like, you could just imagine all the different systems that have to connect together. So, keep describing it.
Yeah, the
describing it.
possibilities are so phenomenal, and it's so piecemeal. I mean, I still use plastic pill boxes from the dollar store, right, to manage my meds. We still use the same thing for my wife, same thing for my stepfather, and and I know there's technology we could use to do that, but honestly, the technology, when I look at the technology, it doesn't actually solve any, it's mostly just sort of gee whiz stuff. It doesn't actually solve problems. I've still got to get the prescriptions. I've still got to put it in
Yeah.
the device, and I've still got to program the device. And if things don't go right, the device is not very forgiving, and it actually becomes worse rather than better. And of course, the last thing that I think is really hard and you've touched on a little bit, is sort of just this human thing. So my
Yeah.
stepfather, he took a fall, as I told you. The thing that will ultimately do him in will be that he'll take another fall. And the reason is he won't use a cane. He won't use a
Mm,
walker. He's got both in his room. Won't do it. He won't use a bedside commode, because I guess he's like me, right? He wants to deny his age even at 92. And he has a right to that self-determination. Can't tie him down, can't, because he's got quality of life. And I don't know whether there's a solution to that. I mean, get the ultimate line is that when we get really old, it's just hard.
yeah. Well, you're touching on that internal ageism and the notion that we certainly in this culture attach a lot of shame to that. And
Yeah.
shame is one of the strongest human motivators, even more than love and hate. It's we don't want to be embarrassed. Like humans just don't want to be embarrassed. We'll do anything to not be
Yeah.
embarrassed. And so my other mantra, so high touch plus high tech have to be tightly integrated. My other mantra is design for joy, not for stigma.
Ooh.
Right. So if you're gonna, so why the cane, to your father-in-law, like is signaling something that he should feel that's in decline. Make that cane fabulous, like make it personal, make it brilliant, make it whatever design so that would enjoy using it. And that if people saw him using it, they'd be like, you look pretty good with that, whatever that is. That's part of your persona. It's part of your style, so style over stigma will be the difference between somebody using it or not using it. But also back to your saying, like, we want folks to come to this work and also make money. Why not? They should. That's how you're going to scale your product, is if people are excited to use it and are not embarrassed. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I love this. So I talked to a guy who's exploring doing setting up a marketing agency, not just for senior living, but to explore sort of the 50 or age 50 or 60 plus. And most companies are not doing a very good job of that. And one of the things he said that's really resonated, I haven't written about this, maybe I'll do that when we get off this, is that it would be amazing if we could make it so that people brag about living in senior living. So how do we make it so that people brag about, not just about getting old, because people do brag about that, but they brag about how great. It's like too much of bragging about aging is about, I went through this misery of getting to Mount Everest and it just about killed me, and it probably will mean I lose my life earlier, but I made it to the top. And instead of, man, I can't believe how much better my life is at 80 or 90 within the context than ever. I'm as happy as I've ever been. And I think that's possible.
Yeah, it is possible. And I think we're experiencing also that feedback loop where we're having, I mean, the fastest growing demographic in this country are the 80+ year olds. So, two 80-year-olds are not going to present in the same way, right? One group of 80-year-old will present with a lot of frailty. And as you mentioned, maybe a lot more of complaints and looking back in life. And there are 80-year-olds who are like, I mean, I took a yoga class this weekend from a woman who was 85 years old. She was amazing. And after the yoga class, I saw her, she was in the gym next door, like working on her balance. So, so she can't do the stretches the way the rest of us do stretches, but she's out there doing it. So I think it's again, we're like shape-shifting kind of what matters to you. And one of the clubs that I started is the Founders Over 55 Club. So here I am in Boston, big innovation community. And I had this insight, like a lot of entrepreneurs clearly, in their 20s, 30s, 40s, et cetera. But I'm like, Yeah, but there's a lot of us who are coming to this work in our 50s, 60s, and 70s. So what if we just formed a little club to see what might be unique? Well, we had 12 people around the table in our first meeting, and through pandemic, we grew to 700. And we run events, pitch fests and so forth. And we said we're gonna have so much fun that people are gonna want to be old, And my favorite moment was we had this 30-something-year-old, and she saw us in a meeting. She could, is it okay if I join you guys? Like, there's so much wisdom and mentorship and possibility in this room. Like, can I come? I'm like, of course. We're not being age segregated here. We're just saying that it's more of a signal. It's really the signal, right? That at 55, you can start a company and crush it like the other entrepreneurs, founders, or you could start a lifestyle brand and, just do something that matches your passion. So I think, Steve, it's kind of the work that you're doing. I mean, you're living it. Like, you're living an amazing feedback loop for the next generation. Say, look at this guy. Like, he can do this live TV and have these guests and have fun. Like, great. So can the rest of us,
That's
So,
right.
yeah.
And I would say my stepfather, he had a major, he got scammed, and in his I don't know, mid-70s perhaps, and he went back to work as a high-tech and he's the least tech guy you've ever met, and he's selling the sophisticated technology platforms that are used to do computer chips, and he made it all back and more. And so you can do it at any age, right? And as long as your mind is still working and your body is still working. And so I've got two more things I want to. I hate it when this happens because my clock is winning. But two things I want to talk to you about. The first is I'd like you to talk for me a minute or two about your thoughts on AI. And then I want to have you talk a little bit about how people might work with you and whatever you do. We'll give you a chance to be your own commercial.
Okay. Well, and also I just want to back up. My reaction was when you mentioned elder fraud, like that is one of the things that just, I can't like my blood instantly boils. Okay. So let's connect that with AI, right? So, both ends, right? So AI is getting ever more sophisticated and can impersonate voices and access to accounts and so we got to be ever more vigilant. That being said, AI can also be part of the solution with pattern detection, pattern matching alerts, et cetera. So AI is it's almost like a benevolent nuclear weapon, right? Like nuclear energy is the way that we could, serve our energy needs. It also can be, massively destructive. So it's really in the hands of the innovator. It's in the hands of the policymakers, and the consumer, right? What are we yearning for? So with all that being said, I am very excited about some of the possibilities with AI for, let's say, diagnostics to assist with medical treatments and so forth. Very excited about AI in terms of companionship. There's the loneliness epidemic, clearly. I'm excited about AI for folks who are in cognitive decline, and where AI can really help to tap into some core memories. And, AI is never going to get frustrated, like hearing the same story over and over again, for instance, right? AI being built into autonomous driving so that older adults don't feel they're trapped at home. They can pop into a car and off they go. So I do feel as though there's plenty of good use cases for AI. And, we just have to be ever vigilant. And, the policies and so forth and the ethics will have to just kind of keep pace with all of that. So yeah. And I have 100 more things to talk about that. But if you have anything specific, I'm happy to.
Yeah, we're out of time. I think I'm going to have you back on again.
Okay.
And we'll do more of this because this has been a great conversation. But talk to me a little bit about how you work with people, what you're doing, this is tell the audience how they should be connecting with you.
Yeah, awesome. Well, if you're out there working in innovation, I would love to work with you. The world needs you. We need more people designing these amazing solutions for people. We need more people to help get that into the hands of people who need it. So if you're looking to scale your company, I'd love to work with you. A number of ways. One, I'm a coach, so I can help with your public speaking, your pitching. your business strategy, your messaging, kind of getting that all so that you can shine on stage, you can shine in your meetings, you can get to your next milestone. So public speaking coaching. I'm also a curator for innovation programming. This is the work I'm doing with AARP. So we mentioned we met at CES. I produce 32 live panel discussions every hour on the hour on all topics related to Agetech innovation. But I also go beyond just Agetech and really in any category. So if you want to bring people together and you want to really create a movement, I would love to work with you, and really just to catalyze innovation. So if you want to noodle big ideas, like I can help get you to the point from idea to impact.
Cool. Danielle, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great conversation. I wish we had more time. We will do it again if you're willing.
Absolutely.
And with that, thank you for watching. I hope you have a great week. We'll be back with Foresight TV on Friday with Sean Kelly. Very excited about that conversation. Jada, thanks so much for producing behind the scenes. I forget to say that too often, but and you should slap me with a wet noodle or something when I do. And with that, we'll see you on Friday.
And thank you, Steve. Thanks for the work you do.
Thank you.